Hello, my friend, and welcome to the Keeper of the Home podcast. If you're new here, I am Cami, creator of the blog and YouTube channel Tidbits and Company. I hope you are subscribed over there on my YouTube channel, where I love to share a lot of inspiration for the keeper of the home visually. And then, of course, I have my blog, tidbitsandcompany.com, where I have years of content stored up for you. You could spend quite some time looking over all that I have created. But today I am thankful to have you here on the podcast. We are doing round 2 of old-fashioned homemaking hacks, and I have quite a few to share with you. So last time I did round 1 of these homemaking hacks. You guys seem to love them. I told you that in our community cookbook there were pages more, and to let me know if you wanted me to share more. And judging by your comments on my YouTube video for this podcast, y'all want more homemaking hacks, so I'm showing up for that today. I haven't even read them all myself, and last time I shared 50. I think there's about 70 more, but I have a few of my own that I don't think are in here anyway. I'll skip over them if they are, but I have a few of my own to share with you once we get through all this. And then I've got my computer up here because a lot of you shared some really awesome kitchen homemaking hacks with us on the last podcast. So I want to read some of those out loud as well because they're really good. And I know not everyone heads to the comment sections. So we're going to get a bunch of homemaking hacks from my community of longtime homemakers, as well as some of my own, and then we'll wrap it up with some of yours. Thank you so much for joining me. I think this is going to be fun. All right, let's go ahead and start reading. I did say there will be 70, but they're short. This actually goes surprisingly fast. So let's get to it. All right. Green pepper may change the flavor of frozen casseroles. Clove, garlic, and pepper flavors get stronger when frozen, while sage, onion, and salt become more mild. For an easy no-mess side dish, grill vegetables along with your meat. Store dried pasta, rice, except brown rice, and whole grains in tightly covered containers in a cool, dry place. Refrigerate brown rice and freeze grains if you will not use them within 5 months. I have noticed that brown rice goes rancid a lot faster, but I love that idea to refrigerate them. A few drops of lemon juice added to simmering rice will keep the grains separate. When cooking greens, add a teaspoon of sugar to the water to help vegetables retain their fresh colors. To dress up buttered, cooked vegetables, sprinkle them with toasted sesame seeds, toasted chopped nuts, canned French fried onions, grated cheese, or slightly crushed seasoned croutons. I always put some sliced almonds in with our broccoli and carrots. I think that's a really good tip to just dress it up, and it's a nice extra crunch. Anyway, I try to keep my commenting to a minimum, but I fail often, so here we go. Souffle dishes are designed with straight sides to help your souffle rise. Ramekins work well for single-serve casseroles. A little vinegar or lemon juice added to potatoes before draining will make them extra white when mashed. I had no idea. That's a pretty cool trick. Have any of you tried that before? Does it actually work? I'm way curious. To avoid toughened beans or corn, add salt midway through cooking. If your pasta sauce seems a little dry, add a few tablespoons of the pasta's cooking water. To prevent cheese from sticking to a grater, spray the grater with cooking spray before beginning. All right, I'm going to struggle to turn this page here, but that little hack about the adding lemon juice or vinegar to your potatoes to keep them white. I don't know. Do you guys make mashed potatoes without the skins? I have always found that I really like to get like red potatoes or Yukon potatoes, and that's what I make mashed potatoes out of because I love that little fleck of skin inside of them. I just think it's really pretty and tasty, but I'm curious what you do. All right, here we go. When baking bread, a small dish of water in the oven will keep the crust from getting too hard or brown. Use shortening, not margarine or oil, to grease pans when baking bread. Margarine and oil absorb more readily into the dough. Okay, guys, I'm sorry, I do not like that hack. I think shortening and margarine are terrible for you. So I don't even have those in my house. If you read up on, hydrogenated oils, you'll realize how bad they are for us. So I just like to use, Costco has that sprayed avocado oil. We use that a lot if I need like a spray oil. Otherwise, I'm just wiping coconut oil down, and I find that works pretty good. So no shortening our margarine, but if you have it, that's okay too. Grease your pans with it and nothing will stick. Sounds great. All right, to make self-rising flour, mix 4 cups flour, 2 teaspoons salt, and 2 tablespoons baking powder. Store in a tightly covered container. 1 scant tablespoon of bulk yeast is equal to 1 packet of yeast. That's a good tip. I always find I'm looking for that information if I ever cook with yeast. Hot water kills yeast. One way to test for the correct temperature is to pour the water over your wrist. If you cannot feel hot or cold, the temperature is just right. And I might say that's also a really good trick if you do sourdough. You never want to put it with something really hot. You never want to dump like hot coconut oil that you've just melted over it, or it kills the active yeast. When in doubt, always sift flour before measuring. I don't do that. But when in doubt, you should. Use bread flour for baking heavier breads such as mixed grains, pizza doughs, bagels, etc. When baking in a glass pan, reduce the oven temperature by 25 degrees. Interesting. When baking bread, you can achieve a finer texture if you use milk. Water makes a coarser bread. I also like to use the whey off of homemade yogurt. I make homemade yogurt a lot, and I preserve that whey. It's great to fertilize your garden, and it's great to bake with. If you're making pancakes, it kind of works like buttermilk, makes it a little more fluffy. And then I love to use it in home baked breads. It makes a really, really moist homemade bread. It's so good. For successful quick breads, do not overmix the dough. Mix only until combined. An overmixed batter creates tough and rubbery muffins, biscuits, and quick breads. I always have a hard time resisting that overmixing. I just want to keep mixing it up. It's fun, and you just feel like you need to get those chunks out, but I have found it is better if you do not overmix. Muffins can be eaten warm. Most other quick breads taste better the next day. Nut breads are better if stored 24 hours before serving. Nuts, shelled or unshelled, keep best and longest when stored in the freezer. Unshelled nuts crack more easily when frozen. Nuts can be used directly from the freezer. And I agree with that. They will not go as rancid as quick. So I have a whole section in my freezer devoted to all the nuts, and we just grab from there, and they store a really long time in the freezer. Enhance the flavor of nuts such as almonds, walnuts, and pecans by toasting them before using in recipes. Place nuts on a baking sheet and bake at 300 degrees for 5 to 8 minutes or until slightly browned. I also like to just saute them in like a cast iron skillet. I put a little coconut oil and some maple syrup if I want kind of a sweet and crunchy nut for like a salad or something. That's really yummy. Okay, overripe bananas can be frozen until it's time to bake. Store them unpeeled in a plastic bag. Mind blown. I didn't know you could do that. I'm gonna have to try that. All right, the freshness of eggs can be tested by placing them in a large bowl of cold water. If they float, do not use them. Every chicken owner knows this trick well because you never really know how long those eggs have been sitting out on the countertop. Certain meats, like ribs and pot roast, can be parboiled before grilling to reduce the fat content. Pound meat lightly with a mallet or rolling pin. Pierce with a fork, sprinkle lightly with meat tenderizer, and add marinade. Refrigerate for 20 minutes and cook or grill for quick and succulent meat. Marinating is a cinch if you use a plastic bag. The meat stays in the marinade and it's easy to turn. Cleanup is easy. Just toss the bag. I do that all the time. In fact, if I buy, Smith's has organic chicken organic chicken breast bag that's like perfect for our family serving. And I just actually keep the chicken inside that bag that I buy them in, add the marinade to that. That way you're like not wasting an extra bag. So I do that all the time. It's easier to thinly slice meat if it's partially frozen. I agree. I always try, if I'm cubing meat or slicing it before we cook it, I always try to leave it out just enough that I can easily slice it, but not until it's all the way thawed or it's kind of gross to cut. Adding tomatoes to roast naturally tenderizes the meat, as tomatoes contain an acid that works well to break down meats. Whenever possible, cut meats across the grain. This will make it easier to eat and also give it a more attractive appearance. When frying meat, sprinkle paprika on the meat to turn it golden brown. Thaw all meats in the refrigerator for maximum safety. Refrigerate poultry promptly after purchasing. Keep it in the coldest part of your refrigerator for up to 2 days. Freeze poultry for longer storage. Never leave poultry at room temperature for over 2 hours. When frying chicken, canola oil provides a milder taste, and it contains healthier amounts of saturated and polyunsaturated fats. Do not cover the chicken once it has finished cooking, because covering will cause the coating to lose its crispiness. I'm being a little hoity-toity here, but I don't cook with canola oil either. It's not the best choice out there. I definitely stick with avocado oil, olive oils, coconut oils. They all have different heat points depending on what I'm cooking. But this is a great tip. But if you want to avoid some of the unhealthier oils, I recommend skipping canola oil. 1 pound of boneless chicken equals approximately 3 cups of cubed chicken. Generally, red meat should reach 160 degrees and poultry should reach 180 degrees before serving. This is Fahrenheit. If preparing fish, the surface of the fish should flake off with a fork. Rub lemon juice on fish before cooking to enhance the flavor and help maintain a good color. Scaling a fish is easier if vinegar is rubbed on the scales first. When grilling fish, the rule of thumb is to cook 5 minutes on each side per inch of thickness. For example, cook a 2-inch thick fillet for 10 minutes per side. Before grilling, rub with oil to seal in the moisture. I have to admit, I am completely oblivious to cooking fish. I have quite an abhorrence for anything fish. I have tried to overcome it. But I can't even stand the smell. It makes me like physically sick. So my husband, he always tells me there's only one thing he would change about me, and that's that I would like fish. I just can't do it. But he loves it and wishes I would cook it more. All right, let's continue. Keep eggs at room temperature to create greater volume when whipping egg whites for meringue. This is just an interesting thing I've been thinking about. I know that if you have your own chickens, you can keep them safely on the countertop for days. I don't remember quite how long. Google that if you're trying to know for sure. But they have that bloom on the egg that protects them. But if you wash them, that bloom's gone. However, did you guys know that like in Europe, maybe if you're from Europe, you can verify for us in the comments, but they put all their eggs, washed or unwashed, just on shelves. And so I had a friend go to Europe, and she said, you just walk into a grocery store and the eggs are just on the shelves, even though they've been washed. So I'm really curious about that. Are we just way overprotective here in the US? Or is it, I don't want to say it's okay. I wouldn't dare do it, but I'm just really curious about this fact because everyone refrigerates their eggs around here. So anyway, if you know more, let me know. That's really interesting. Pie dough can be frozen. Roll dough out between sheets of plastic wrap, stack in a pizza box, and keep the box in the freezer. Defrost in the fridge and use as needed. Use within 2 months. That's a great idea. I have an amazing pie crust recipe on the blog using coconut oil. Oh, it is so delicious and flaky and good. You'll have to give it a try. Place your pie plate on a cake stand when ready to flute the edges of the pie. The cake stand will make it easier to turn the pie plate and you won't have to stoop over. What a clever hack. When making decorative pie edges, use a spoon for a scalloped edge and use a fork to make cross-hatched and herringbone patterns. I could definitely up my pie game. These are some great tips. When cutting butter into flour or pastry dough, the process is easier if you cut the butter into small pieces before adding it to the flour. Pumpkin and other custard-style pies are done when they jiggle slightly in the middle. Fruit pies are done when the pastry is golden, juices bubble, and fruit is tender. I learned that you never want to cook a pumpkin pie like too long. If it's past the point where it's jiggling in the center, it's going to taste a little overcooked. So that's definitely something I've learned from experience. Keep the cake plate clean while frosting by sliding 6-inch strips of wax paper under each side of the cake. Once the cake is frosted and the frosting is set, pull the strips away, leaving a clean plate. Create a quick decorating tube to ice your cake with chocolate. Put chocolate in a heat-safe, zipper-lock plastic bag. Immerse it in simmering water until the chocolate is melted. Snip off the tip of one corner and squeeze the chocolate out of the bag. That's interesting. Achieve professionally decorated cakes with a silky, molten look by blow drying the frosting with a hair dryer until the frosting melts slightly. That is brilliant. I never would have thought to do that. I use hair tools for a lot. I use my flat iron to iron my clothes more than I care to admit, like a collar on a shirt or the buttons or the hem. The flat iron comes in handy, but I never thought to use my blow dryer in the kitchen. That is brilliant. To ensure that you have equal amounts of batter in each pan when making a layered cake, use a kitchen scale to measure the weight. Prevent cracking in your cheesecake by placing a shallow pan of hot water on the bottom oven rack and keeping the oven door shut during baking. I'm notorious for cracked cheesecake, but they still taste good, even if they're cracked. A cheesecake needs several hours to chill and set. For a perfectly cut cheesecake, dip the knife into hot water and clean it after each cut. You can also hold a length of dental floss and pull it down through the cheesecake to make a clean cut across the diameter of the cake. That's a really good idea. Okay, we're on the last page here until I give you some of my own and then read some of yours. Unbaked cookie dough can be covered and refrigerated for up to 24 hours or frozen in an airtight container for up to 9 months. We always try to have frozen cookie dough in our house. It comes in handy when you're invited to a potluck, or you need to bring over a treat to someone, or if you just need a treat, you can grab as many cookies as you want and cook them fast. We love that idea. Okay, bake 1 cookie sheet at a time on the middle oven rack. I agree. Usually when you try to cook too many sheets of cookies in an oven, a traditional oven, it doesn't work great. Decorate cookies with chocolate by placing cookies on a rack over waxed paper. Dip the tines of a fork into melted chocolate and wave the fork gently back and forth to make line decorations. Some cookies need indentations on top to fill with jam or chocolate. Use the rounded end of a honey dipper. Dip cookie cutters in flour or powdered sugar and shake off excess before cutting. For chocolate dough, dip the cutters in baking cocoa. Tin coffee cans make excellent freezer containers for cookies. If you only have 1 cookie sheet on hand, line it with parchment paper while one batch is baking. Load a second sheet of parchment paper to have another batch ready to bake. Cleanup will be easier. I never thought to do that. That is such a good tip because you're always waiting for the other batch to come out, but then the pan's really hot and you got to take them off. Anyway, put them all in parchment paper, transfer them onto your sheet pan. Brilliant idea. When a recipe calls for packed brown sugar, fill the correct size measuring cup with sugar and use 1 cup size smaller to pack the brown sugar into its cup. Interesting. This just like, okay, I'm losing count here of how many homemaking hacks I've actually shared with you, but thinking about packing things in a measuring cup, reminded me that if you ever have to measure peanut butter or like something really sticky, I like to I just get like a Ziploc bag and put it inside the measuring cup. And then I put the peanut butter on top of the plastic bag. That way I don't have to wash that really sticky, messy measuring cup. And you can just toss the bag. I guess you could call it the lazy baker's way. Okay, cut up dried fruit often sticks to the blade of your knife. To prevent this problem, coat the blade of your knife with a thin film of vegetable spray before cutting. Instead of folding nuts into brownie batter, sprinkle on top of batter before baking. This keeps the nuts crunchy instead of soggy. Only use glass or shiny metal pans. Dark or nonstick pans will cause brownies to become soggy and low in volume. I remember for our wedding, we got a bunch of the Walmart special dark baking pans. It didn't take us long to toss those and get the same ones that my mom, had for years and years and years. Just the shiny metal ones. They really are the best. And I have to add those same like black coated muffin tins. They're great because they're non-stick. But we noticed that lining like coming off with our muffins, and like my kid was eating it and I'm like, what is on the bottom of their muffin? And I realized that lining was just flaking off into our food. Toss that right away, and we have gotten these cast iron muffin tins. They cook really nicely. They don't flake. They have lasted forever. The only downside is they're kind of heavy and kind of a pain to clean, but they cook beautifully. And then to top it off, I need to add, sometimes I just don't feel like cleaning out muffin tins. So I make a muffin recipe and just put it out on like a sheet pan or a baking, like a casserole baking pan. And we call it like muffin cake. So it's just the muffin recipe, but more in the form of a cake. Still delicious, still works great, and you don't have to clean muffin tins. Okay. I'm just full of ideas now that I'm reading all this. Okay, when making bars, line pan with aluminum foil and prepare as directed. The bars can be lifted out and cleanup is easy. Parchment paper works great for that too. Cutting bars is easier if you score the bars right as the pan leaves the oven. When the bars cool, cut along the scored lines. Oh, that's a fun hack. Use a double boiler for melting chocolate to prevent it from scorching. A slow cooker on the lowest setting also works well for melting chocolate, especially when coating a large amount of candy. I don't have a double boiler, so I always just put like a glass bowl on top of a saucepan filled with water, and so that water boils and melts the chocolate inside the glass bowl. Even if you're tempted, don't melt chocolate inside of a saucepan, because it burns so quick and easy, and then you've ruined it. So I always do the clever way of making a double boiler when you don't have a double boiler. Parchment paper provides an excellent nonstick surface for candy. Wax paper should not be used for high temperature candy. Okay, I think that's it. I've already added several of my own, but here's a few more that I thought of. Even though I could go on, I should probably break these up. We could do kitchen hacks, we could do cleaning hacks, we could do decorating hacks, you name it. We could think of a lot of homemaking hacks, but here's some that I thought to share with you. So I love Instant Pot boiled eggs. They peel so easy, especially if you're getting fresh eggs from your own chickens. Those are a bugger to peel if you're just boiling them in a pot. So Instant Pot boiled eggs is the best way to go. And I never want to look up a recipe, so I've come up with a way to just remember how long to cook my boiled eggs, and that's 555. So I put my eggs inside of a colander that fits inside the Instant Pot. You add a cup of water, and then you set it to cook at high pressure for 5 minutes. You let it natural release for 5 minutes, and then you quick release, and then you put it in an ice bath for 5 minutes. So 555, cook, release, cool. Works every time. You get these beautiful, easy to peel boiled eggs. Okay, my next thing is if you have a really messy blender, like we use our Vitamix blender all the time. It's probably the most used appliance in my house. And we make lots of things that just get it really dirty. And the best way to clean it is just to fill it with water and a little bit of soap, stick it on the blender, blend up your soapy water, and then you get this really nice, clean blender that can just dry. So that's a really quick way to clean your blender after smoothies or sauces or anything else that's otherwise difficult to clean. Okay, someone actually added this hack, I think, on my comments. Let me find it real quick to make sure. Okay, yes, Jessica, you had the same tip that I had thought of, but we don't have a microwave. That's another video for another day. But a lot of times, the most inconvenient thing about not having a microwave is when you need to thaw butter to like the perfect, room temperature, barely soft, great for cookies kind of thawed butter. So when you don't have a microwave, Jessica let us know, and this is also something that I have done, is you put like boiling water in a cup, like a tall glass cup, and then you put your stick of butter standing up, like on a plate, dump the boiling water out of that cup, and then place that cup over the butter and just let it sit for a few minutes. That softens it up perfectly without melting it. It really works great. I think it works better than a microwave because it can be so unpredictable and you can melt the center of that butter stick too fast. So I really like this trick, even if you do have a microwave. And thank you, Jessica, for bringing that up so that I could remember to share that. Here's another idea. The perfect wedding gift, and I like to keep several of these on hand, but they make these like little mini food processors. And I was given one of these at my wedding, and it lasted for probably 12 years before it finally bit the dust. But they're only like $20, and I can link my favorite one that I grab in bulk for like wedding gifts or like wedding showers or you name it. But they're so convenient. They're great for like making a quick batch of fresh salsa, for grinding up nuts, making some guacamole. What else do I use it for? Oh, I hate to chop onions with a knife because my eyes are really, really sensitive. So I just throw it in this little mini food processor. You can make pesto with it. Basically, I have a bigger food processor, but it's hard to wash it. There's a lot of parts to it. And sometimes that mini one is just so convenient for chopping things really quick and in something that's really easy to wash. So I recommend, of course, get one of these for yourself. Even if you have a bigger food processor, I think you'll find, like me, you reach for the mini one a lot faster and you use it a lot more. But my hack is to buy these, by the handfuls and keep them on hand if you need like a quick gift idea for the homemaker. It's just the nicest little appliance to have. And I just think every kitchen needs one. Okay, and then my last homemaking hack for you, or kitchen hack, is that as soon as you get your produce from the grocery store, bring it home and wash it and chop it. And this just makes, it makes vegetables more appealing. The family will grab them more readily because they're there and chopped and they look appetizing. It makes your meal prep go a lot faster if you've already got like washed and chopped carrots or celery, whatever it is you frequently use for your meals. But like, don't even put those bagged produce into your fridge. Just take a few minutes to get them washed and chopped. Also, along that same line, to make your meal prep a lot easier is to have like a day each month where you ground beef in bulk. You can stick it on a sheet pan and stick it in the oven. That makes a really easy way to ground beef. Or just like ground like 10 pounds or 20 pounds, whatever you go through before it goes bad, and get it all ground, put them in bags and store in the freezer. Same thing with chicken. I like to cook it in bulk and shred it or chop it in bulk and stick it in the freezer. It can make your weeknights that get really busy just so much easier to prepare a quick meal if those meats are already prepared. For me, the meat part of a meal is often the most time consuming and the part I don't like. So if I can do that in bulk, like one time a month, it just makes the rest of the month just so much more enjoyable. All right, we have to end with a few of your homemaking hacks that you left on my other podcast episode. So let me find these so that I can share them with everybody. Okay, and since we already thanked Jessica for her butter tip, she also said that putting a wooden spoon over a pot of boiling potatoes also keeps it from boiling over. We also talked about doing that for boiling pasta. It works. It's crazy that boiling water just hits the wooden spoon and stops. It's like magic. Okay, as I'm going through these comments, this is funny. The last one, I told you guys I had no idea what Corningware is. Will you let me know? And I feel silly that I didn't know what it was because my mom had some Corningware. My grandma's had Corningware. I had been around it growing up. I didn't know it had a name, but now I know. Thanks to all of you, I know what Corningware is, and I'm going to be on the lookout because apparently it's high quality, lasts a long time, and it's so pretty. So thank you all for helping me clarify that little unknown thing for me. I've definitely seen it antiquing, and so now I have a name. Okay, Rebecca, you told us that if we want to descale a teapot, you use 1 part vinegar and then 3 parts fresh water and boil it. That's a really great tip. I need to go do that. And then Rebecca, you also added, if you have tile floors, she says hers is porcelain, other materials, please check to make sure, but that vinegar won't damage your floors. But you can pour the vinegar water mixture on freshly vacuumed floors. We use big cleaning towels to have a floor cleaning dance party. It's the only way I ever enjoyed cleaning the floors. How fun. That is a hard task sometimes, but I can see kids really getting into it if you make it fun like that. Sarah, I love this. You said your favorite kitchen tip, if you drop a raw egg on the floor or counter, which is the worst, if you don't have a dog to look it up, you suggested to pour salt all over it, then let it set for a few minutes, and then it wipes up so easily. Trust me, it works. I may have dropped an egg or two. That's brilliant. Speaking of that, have you guys ever tried to clean up like wet mac and cheese or wet rice from the floor? It's sticky, really difficult. If you're just patient and you let it dry a little bit, it's a lot easier to sweep up. I remember my mom told me that she learned someone else did that, and she was mortified that they let that stuff sit on the floor. But I'm here to say, Mom, you know, it's all about making our lives easier sometimes, and to let the mac and cheese or the rice just be will serve you in the long run. Oh, this is a great one. I've done this before. Add a piece of bread to your brown sugar. It stops it from clumping or getting hard. Yeah, I've done that. Works great. But if like leaving stale bread in your brown sugar sounds nasty, someone gifted us once. It's actually some kind of stone that you can put inside of brown sugar, so it's not a food item, but it keeps it soft. I think I have one of those somewhere in this mess of unpacked boxes, but that's a great idea as well. Okay, Mary Jo, I've got to read yours. You said to use baking soda and white vinegar when washing your towels. It helps with the odors and softens them. That's a great idea. Also, if you ever wash your berries and then let them dry on a tea towel, it can leave little stains really quickly. If you just put them in your sink and dump some like boiling or really, really hot water on top of the tea towel inside your inside your sink, those little berry stains get away pretty quick and you don't have to worry about if they're going to get out in the wash. Just take care of it right then so that you can be sure. Okay, here's a tip that is not related to the kitchen, but Vicky shared it and I loved it. It's about folding those fitted sheets, which is such a pain. She says, I don't put a lot of effort into that. When I change sheets, I always toss them in the dryer with a wet dryer sheet. Then I put them on the bed while they're warm and wrinkle-free. I do that too. I don't even have spare sheets for all my kids. When it's sheet washing day, it's off, wash, and then right back on. Has usually served us well. There have been the few instances, where the kid throws up in the middle of the night and you're just putting blankets on the bed. But I just agree with that. We don't keep folded, fitted sheets. We just put them right back on the bed. Because I found if you store sheets for too long, when you go and get them again, they just feel or they smell kind of musty. So I prefer to just wash them and have clean, fresh sheets right on the bed same day. That's my preferred way to do it. Jane, I've got to read yours. You said that one thing that you've been doing is to keep the kitchen sink clean and from holding on to small bits of food. You use car wax and you smear it on and then you let it dry and then polish, and it beads up the water and it doesn't allow food to adhere. That's really interesting. This is the first time I've had a stainless steel sink, well, for a long time. And we're having that issue. I don't like it, so that's a really clever hack. I wonder if like coconut oil would do the same if you don't want car wax in your sink. I don't know. Interesting idea. Okay, my friends, I actually think I'm rambling on too much at this point, but I think it's so much fun to share these homemaking hacks with you, and I hope you've enjoyed them as well. Thank you everyone for your comments, your input. Please, if you thought of something while I was reading all of these, leave them in the comments on my YouTube channel where I host the video version for this podcast. It's really, really fun for me to read the cool things that you've learned while you've been a homemaker and the things that you're doing to just make your life a little easier. So thanks for being here with me. Thanks for sharing. And I will be back very soon to share more inspiration for the keeper of the home.